Welcome to Section 1 of our Commercial Driver License Practice Prep course, where we dive into general knowledge and vehicle operation basics. In this lesson, you will learn the foundational rules of the road and the essential controls needed to operate a commercial motor vehicle safely. This topic is absolutely critical because the general knowledge test is the mandatory starting point for every single commercial driver, regardless of what vehicle you plan to drive. Get ready to build a rock-solid foundation that will make the rest of your certification journey much easier to understand. Let us jump right in and start mastering the basics of commercial driving. One of the most heavily tested topics on your exam is the pre-trip vehicle inspection. Before you ever turn the key in the ignition, you are legally required to ensure your vehicle is safe to operate on public roads. A proper pre-trip inspection prevents breakdowns, reduces accidents, and keeps you compliant with federal regulations. During your exam, you will need to know exactly what components to check and what specific defects to look for. You should always approach your inspection methodically by starting at the front of the engine and working your way systematically around the vehicle. When inspecting the engine compartment, you must check all your critical fluid levels. This includes your engine oil, coolant, power steering fluid, and windshield washer fluid. For the exam, you need to know that these fluids should be above the refill mark and securely capped. You will also need to inspect all the belts in the engine area, such as the alternator belt, water pump belt, and air compressor belt. The rule of thumb for the test is that belts should not have more than up to 3/4 of an inch of play when you press on them, and they should not be frayed or cracked. Moving down to the steering system, examiners want to see that you understand how to spot dangerous mechanical wear. You must check the steering box to ensure it is securely mounted and not leaking any fluid. Then you will inspect the steering linkage, which includes the pitman arm, drag link, steering knuckles, and tie rods. None of these metal parts can be cracked, bent, or broken, and all castle nuts and cotter pins must be firmly in place. A failure in the steering system while driving a heavy commercial vehicle is catastrophic, which is why exam questions frequently focus on these exact components. The suspension system is another major focus area because it supports the massive weight of your commercial vehicle. You will need to inspect the leaf springs to ensure none are missing, shifted, or cracked. If even 1/4 of the leaves in any spring assembly are broken, the vehicle is immediately put out of service. You must also check the shock absorbers for leaks and make sure the U-bolts and spring mounts are tightly secured to the vehicle frame. Understanding these suspension limits is a common trap on the written test, so remember the 25% broken leaves rule. While we will cover air brakes deeply in a later section, you must know basic brake components for the general knowledge test. At each wheel you will check the brake hoses and lines to ensure they are not cracked, worn, or leaking air. You must also inspect the brake chamber to verify it is securely mounted and not dented. Finally, you will look at the slack adjusters and pushrods, ensuring that with the brakes released and pulled by hand, the pushrod does not move more than 1 inch. This 1-inch rule for manual slack adjusters is highly likely to appear on your multiple-choice exam. Tire safety is critical and has specific tread depth requirements you must memorize. For the front steering tires, the law requires a minimum tread depth of 4/32 of an inch in every major groove. For all other tires on the vehicle, including drive tires and trailer tires, the requirement is only 2/32 of an inch. Additionally, you cannot use recapped or retreaded tires on the front steering axle of a commercial bus or truck. This distinction between steer tires and all other tires is a favorite question among test creators. Beyond the rubber of the tires, you must also carefully inspect the wheels and rims. You are looking for any bends, cracks, or welding repairs, because welding on a commercial wheel rim is strictly prohibited and extremely dangerous. Next, you will check all the lug nuts to ensure none are missing or loose. A classic sign of a loose lug nut that examiners want you to know is the presence of rust trails out from the nut, or shiny metal threads exposed on the bolt. If you see those rust trails during a real-world inspection, you know you have a loose wheel that needs immediate attention. Once your vehicle is inspected and deemed safe, you must understand basic vehicle control skills. This includes accelerating smoothly, steering properly, shifting gears, and braking safely. When accelerating a heavy vehicle, especially one with a manual transmission, you must engage the clutch smoothly to avoid jerking or damaging the driveline. Rough acceleration can also cause your cargo to shift, which creates a massive safety hazard. The exam will test your knowledge of how a heavy vehicle behaves differently than a regular passenger car when you first start moving. Proper steering technique is simple but often overlooked by new drivers. You should hold the steering wheel firmly with both hands, typically placing them at the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock positions. This grip gives you the best leverage and control if you hit a pothole or experience a sudden front tire blowout. Driving a commercial vehicle with only one hand is dangerous and will cause you to fail a road test instantly. The written exam might ask you about hand position to ensure you understand how to maintain control during emergencies. Shifting gears in a commercial truck is completely different from shifting a small passenger car. Most heavy trucks use non-synchronized manual transmissions, meaning you must use a technique called double clutching to change gears smoothly. Double clutching involves pressing the clutch pedal to shift into neutral, releasing it, matching your engine speed to your road speed, and then pressing the clutch again to enter the next gear. Understanding the concept of matching your engine revolutions per minute to your road speed is vital for passing questions about transmission operation. Downshifting is a particularly important skill, especially before you start driving down a steep hill or entering a sharp curve. You must always downshift into the appropriate lower gear before you begin a descent, not while you are already going down the hill. This allows you to use the braking power of your engine to control your speed, rather than relying only on your service brakes. If you ride your brakes down a mountain, they will overheat, fade, and eventually fail completely. The exam will heavily test your understanding of using engine braking instead of service brakes on downgrades. The general knowledge test also evaluates your visual search skills and how well you manage your line of sight. As a commercial driver, you should be looking 12 to 15 seconds ahead of your vehicle at all times. At highway speeds, 12 to 15 seconds translates to about a quarter of a mile, or roughly 4 city blocks. Looking far ahead allows you to spot traffic jams, lane closures, or hazards with enough time to smoothly adjust your speed and change lanes. This specific 12 to 15 second rule is almost guaranteed to be on your permit test. While looking ahead is vital, managing the space behind and to the sides of your large vehicle is just as important. You must check your mirrors regularly, ideally every 5 to 8 seconds, to maintain awareness of your surroundings. Commercial vehicles have massive blind spots, often called no zones, where smaller cars can completely disappear from your view. You should constantly monitor these areas and never assume a lane is clear just because you do not see a car in a quick glance. Regular mirror checks help you keep track of vehicles that might be lingering in your blind spots. Communicating your intentions to other drivers is a core principle of commercial driving safety. You should activate your turn signal at least 100 feet before making a turn or changing lanes in city traffic. On the highway, it is best practice to signal much earlier to give fast-moving traffic plenty of time to react to your large vehicle. Additionally, you should leave your signal on until you have completely finished your maneuver. The exam will test your understanding of proper signaling distances because sudden moves in a massive truck often lead to tragic accidents. Managing the space around your vehicle is critical because commercial trucks require significantly more room to maneuver and stop than cars. The general rule for following distance is to keep at least 1 second of space for every 10 feet of vehicle length at speeds below 40 miles per hour. For example, if you are driving a 60-foot rig, you need at least 6 seconds of following distance. If you are traveling faster than 40 miles per hour, you must add 1 additional second for safety. Space management questions are very common because rear-end collisions are a leading cause of commercial vehicle crashes. You must also understand the total stopping distance required for heavy vehicles. Total stopping distance is made up of three parts, which are perception distance, reaction distance, and braking distance. It takes time for your brain to recognize a hazard, time for your foot to move to the brake pedal, and time for the physical brakes to actually stop the heavy load. At 55 miles per hour, a fully loaded tractor-trailer can take more than the length of a football field to come to a complete stop. Exam questions will test your knowledge of how weight, speed, and road conditions multiply this stopping distance. Backing up a commercial vehicle is inherently dangerous and should be avoided whenever possible. When you absolutely must back up, you should always try to position your vehicle so you can back toward the driver's side. This is called sight-side backing, and it allows you to look out your window and see the rear of your trailer much more clearly than using your right side mirrors. You should also use a helper or spotter outside the vehicle whenever one is available. The exam stresses the dangers of backing and will want you to know the hierarchy of safe backing techniques. Finally, the general knowledge section covers basic adjustments for poor driving conditions. When the road is wet, your braking distance increases significantly, so you must reduce your speed by about 1/3. If you are driving on packed snow, you should reduce your speed by at least half. When the road surface becomes icy, you must reduce your speed to a crawl and stop driving as soon as you can safely do so. Knowing these exact speed reduction fractions for wet, snowy, and icy roads is essential for passing the written exam. Congratulations on completing Section 1 of this commercial driving course. I highly encourage you to complete the attached practice test to reinforce everything we just covered together. Answering practice questions is the absolute best way to improve your memory retention and build your exam readiness for test day. The practice test is included right here with this lesson, so take advantage of it to measure your current understanding. Keep up this active learning approach, and I will see you in the next section where we will tackle driving safely and managing advanced hazards. Welcome back to Section 2 of our Commercial Driver License Practice Prep course. In this lesson, we are going to focus on driving safely and managing advanced hazards on the road. You will learn how to identify dangerous situations before they happen and exactly how to react to keep your heavy vehicle under control. This topic is incredibly important because defensive driving is what separates an amateur from a true professional who protects themselves and the public. Get ready to elevate your awareness and learn the vital skills needed to navigate the unpredictable world of commercial driving. The first step to safe driving is understanding how to recognize a hazard before it becomes an emergency. A hazard is any road condition or other road user that poses a possible danger to your vehicle. For example, a car parked on the shoulder of the highway or a pedestrian walking near the edge of the road are both hazards. Recognizing these dangers early gives you the time you need to formulate a plan, such as changing lanes or slowing down, rather than slamming on your brakes at the last second. On the exam, you will be tested on your ability to anticipate these everyday hazards. Managing the space all around your vehicle is the core of defensive driving. As a commercial driver, you are operating a massive machine that cannot stop or swerve like a small passenger car. You must maintain a cushion of space in front of, behind, and on all sides of your truck. We discussed following distance previously, but you must also be highly aware of the space above your truck. You need to always watch for low-hanging tree branches, unrated bridges, and low power lines that could strike the top of your trailer. Just as you watch the space above, you must also monitor the space below your commercial vehicle. While trucks sit high off the ground, they can still be easily damaged by large debris, deep potholes, or uneven railroad crossings. If you try to drive a heavily loaded trailer over a severely raised railroad track, the belly of your trailer can actually get stuck on the tracks. This is called hanging up your trailer, and it is an incredibly dangerous situation that examiners will expect you to know how to avoid. Controlling your speed is another critical factor in safely managing hazards. When you are approaching a curve, you must slow down to a safe speed before you actually enter the turn. If you enter a curve too fast and try to brake while you are turning, your wheels can lock up and cause your vehicle to skid out of control. Heavy vehicles with a high center of gravity are also prone to rolling over if you take a curve too fast. The exam will remind you that the posted speed limit for a curve is often meant for passenger cars, meaning you need to go even slower. Mountain driving requires intense speed management and a deep understanding of your vehicle capabilities. The single most important rule for driving down a steep grade is to select a safe speed that is not too fast for the weight of your load and the steepness of the hill. Once you select that safe speed, you must be in the proper low gear before starting your descent. You should then use the braking effect of your engine to maintain that speed. Relying primarily on your foot brake will cause the brakes to overheat, lose their stopping power, and fail completely. Driving at night presents unique hazards because your visibility is severely reduced. You cannot see hazards as early as you can during the day, which means your reaction time is effectively cut in half. To compensate for this lack of vision, you must drive slower at night so you can stop within the distance you can clearly see ahead with your headlights. If you are driving faster than your headlights can illuminate, you are overdriving your headlights, which is a major safety violation that frequently appears on the test. Proper use of your headlights is essential for both your safety and the safety of other drivers at night. You should use your high beams whenever it is safe and legal to do so, because they let you see much farther down the road. However, you must dim your high beams whenever you are within 500 feet of an oncoming vehicle or when following another vehicle closely. You must also avoid looking directly into the headlights of oncoming cars to prevent glare blindness, choosing instead to look at the right edge of your lane until the car passes. Fog is one of the most dangerous weather conditions you can encounter as a commercial driver. The best advice for driving in thick fog is to pull over into a safe and legal parking area until the visibility improves. If you absolutely must drive in light fog, you need to reduce your speed significantly and turn on your low beam headlights. You should never use your high beams in the fog because the bright light will simply reflect off the moisture in the air and blind you, making it even harder to see the road ahead. Winter driving introduces severe hazards like black ice, which is a thin layer of transparent ice that makes the road look wet but is actually extremely slippery. Black ice forms quickly on bridges, overpasses, and shaded areas of the road where the sun cannot melt the frost. If your steering feels unusually light or if you stop hearing the spray of water from your tires on what looks like a wet road, you might be driving on black ice. The exam tests your awareness of these environmental clues to ensure you recognize traction loss immediately. Extreme heat also causes unique mechanical hazards that you must monitor closely. When driving in very hot weather, you need to frequently check your tires because heat causes tire pressure to increase. If a tire becomes too hot to touch, you must stop driving and let it cool down, or it could blow out violently. You must also keep a close eye on your engine temperature gauge to prevent the engine from overheating. Never attempt to remove the radiator cap from a hot, pressurized cooling system, because the boiling coolant can spray out and cause severe burns. No matter how carefully you inspect your vehicle, driving emergencies can still happen, such as a sudden tire blowout. If you hear a loud bang or feel a sudden jerking in the steering wheel, you have likely lost a front tire. Your first instinct might be to slam on the brakes, but doing so can cause you to lose control and spin out. Instead, you must grip the steering wheel tightly with both hands, stay off the brake pedal, and let the vehicle slow down naturally. Only apply the brakes gently once your speed has dropped to a safe, controllable level. Experiencing brake failure on a downgrade is a terrifying situation that requires immediate, calm action. If your brakes fail while descending a mountain, you should look for an escape ramp immediately. Escape ramps are specially designed lanes built with soft gravel or uphill slopes to safely stop runaway vehicles without causing damage or injury. If an escape ramp is not available, you must look for an alternative open area or a side road that goes uphill. You will be tested on the importance of knowing where escape ramps are located on your route. Sometimes a hazard appears so suddenly that you do not have enough distance to stop, forcing you to steer around it. Evasive steering requires a firm grip on the wheel and a smooth, quick movement to change direction. You should avoid braking while making an aggressive steering maneuver because locked wheels will not turn, causing you to plow straight into the hazard. It is also important to know that steering onto the right shoulder is usually safer than steering into the left lane, where you might collide head-on with oncoming traffic. Understanding how to recover from a skid is a critical safety skill for the exam. The most common type of skid is a drive wheel braking skid, which happens when you brake too hard on a slippery surface and the rear wheels lock up. To recover from this type of skid, you must instantly take your foot off the brake pedal to let the rear wheels start rolling again. Once the wheels regain traction, you should steer quickly in the direction you want the vehicle to go. Never try to accelerate out of a braking skid, as it will only make the situation worse. If you are involved in or come across a traffic accident, you have a professional duty to secure the area and prevent further collisions. Your very first action should be to protect the scene by pulling your vehicle safely to the side of the road if possible. You must immediately turn on your four-way hazard flashes to warn approaching traffic. Then, you should set out your reflective emergency triangles at the proper distances to alert other drivers before they reach the accident. The exam will definitely test your knowledge of emergency triangle placement. After protecting the scene, your next step is to notify the authorities by calling emergency services. You should provide them with your exact location and a brief description of the situation so they know what type of help to send. If there are injured people, you should provide basic first aid if you are trained to do so, but never move a severely injured person unless they are in immediate danger of fire or oncoming traffic. Knowing these priority steps helps you remain calm and act correctly during a highly stressful event. Fire safety is another major hazard management topic you will face on the written test. The best way to manage a vehicle fire is to prevent it from starting in the first place. You must routinely check for underinflated tires, which can rub together and catch fire from friction. You should also look for electrical shorts, fuel leaks, and improper cargo storage, as these are leading causes of truck fires. During your pre-trip inspection, verifying that your fire extinguisher is fully charged and securely mounted is a mandatory safety requirement. If a fire does break out, you need to know how to use your fire extinguisher safely and effectively. You should always stand upwind of the fire so the wind blows the smoke and flames away from you. When using the extinguisher, aim the nozzle directly at the base of the fire, not at the flames dancing at the top. Use a sweeping motion from side to cover the source of the fuel. However, you should never attempt to fight a massive, out-of-control fire, and instead retreat to a safe distance and wait for professional firefighters. Congratulations on completing Section 2 and advancing your knowledge of defensive driving and hazard management. I strongly encourage you to complete the attached practice test right now to lock in these critical safety concepts. Completing practice questions improves your memory retention and builds the confidence you need for absolute exam readiness. Remember that the practice test is included with this lesson to help you actively test your skills. Keep up this fantastic momentum and active learning, and I look forward to seeing you in the next section where we will cover transporting cargo and passengers safely. Welcome back to Section 3 of our Commercial Driver License Practice Prep course where we will master transporting cargo and passengers safely. In this lesson you will discover the vital regulations surrounding weight limits, cargo securement, and the specialized rules for driving passenger vehicles. This topic is absolutely crucial because an improperly secured load or a careless mistake while driving a bus can have devastating real-world consequences. Get ready to expand your knowledge as we explore the specific protocols that will keep your freight intact and your passengers secure. Let us dive in and build the expertise you need to ace this portion of your exam. The most important rule to remember for your exam is that you are ultimately responsible for the safety of your cargo. Even if a separate loading crew packed your trailer, the driver is legally accountable for ensuring the load is balanced and secure before hitting the road. You must inspect your cargo within the first 50 miles of your trip to ensure nothing has shifted during initial transit. After that initial check, the law requires you to stop and inspect your load again every 150 miles or every 3 hours of driving, whichever comes first. This ongoing responsibility is a frequent topic on the multiple choice test. Understanding weight limits is essential to prevent illegal overloading and dangerous vehicle handling. You will be tested on the gross vehicle weight rating, which is the maximum safe weight of a single vehicle and its load as specified by the manufacturer. You also need to know the gross combination weight rating, which applies to a truck pulling a trailer, representing the maximum allowable weight of both units combined plus the cargo. Exceeding these ratings not only results in massive fines at weigh stations, but also destroys your brakes, tires, and suspension systems over time. Balancing the weight across your axles is just as important as the total overall weight. If you put too much weight on your front steering axle, your steering wheel will become incredibly hard to turn, and your front tires could blow out under the stress. Conversely, if you place too little weight on the steering axle by loading everything at the very back of the trailer, your front tires will lose traction and your vehicle might refuse to turn when you steer. Exam questions often ask how improper weight distribution affects your steering and traction, so remember that balance is key. The height of your cargo directly impacts your vehicle center of gravity, which is a major factor in preventing rollovers. To keep your truck stable, you should always load the heaviest items as low as possible and centered from left to right inside the trailer. A high center of gravity means the truck will lean heavily to the outside when going around a curve, making it incredibly easy to tip over. When test questions mention a top-heavy load, your immediate thought should be the increased danger of a rollover accident, requiring you to take curves at extremely low speeds. Once your load is balanced, you must secure it properly using tie-downs to prevent it from flying off your trailer. The golden rule for tie-downs that you must memorize for the exam is that you need at least one tie-down for every 10 feet of cargo length, or fraction thereof. However, no matter how small or light the cargo is, you are legally required to use a minimum of 2 tie-downs. This ensures that if one tie-down snaps or comes loose, the second one will keep the cargo safely on the trailer and off the highway. Examiners will also test your knowledge of working load limits, which measures the maximum strength of your securement devices. The federal regulation states that the aggregate working load limit of all your tie-downs must be at least 1/2 the total weight of the cargo being secured. For example, if you are hauling a 10,000-pound steel coil, your tie-down straps and chains must have a combined strength rating of at least 5,000 pounds. Knowing this specific mathematical rule is essential for passing the cargo securement portion of your test. Front-end header boards, sometimes called headboards, are a critical safety feature when transporting heavy cargo on flatbed trailers. A headboard acts as a strong physical barrier placed between the cargo and the back of your cab. If you have to slam on your brakes suddenly in an emergency, the headboard prevents heavy items like steel pipes or lumber from shooting forward and crushing the driver compartment. The exam will want you to recognize that the primary purpose of a header board is to protect you, the driver, from forward shifting loads. Covering your cargo with tarps is another vital aspect of load management, especially for open loads like gravel, sand, or agricultural products. Tarps serve a dual purpose by protecting your freight from bad weather and protecting other drivers from flying debris. Spilling gravel or loose materials on the highway can easily crack the windshields of following cars and cause severe multi-vehicle accidents. You must ensure your tarps are pulled tight and securely fastened down, because a flapping tarp can obscure your mirrors and eventually tear itself apart in the wind. Certain types of cargo present unique handling challenges that the general knowledge exam specifically highlights. For instance, hauling dry bulk materials like grain or cement powder requires extra caution because the load can easily shift from side to side. Dry bulk tanks typically have very high centers of gravity, making them incredibly prone to rolling over on highway ramps. You must take curves much slower than normal when hauling dry bulk, as the shifting material can suddenly alter the balance of your vehicle right in the middle of a turn. Transporting hanging meat in a refrigerated truck is another highly specialized scenario frequently featured on the commercial driving exam. Carcasses suspended from the ceiling of the trailer have a very high center of gravity and will swing back and forth like a pendulum when you steer or brake. This swinging motion creates a delayed push on the vehicle, meaning the momentum of the meat will hit you a second after you have actually made your maneuver. To prevent a rollover, you must drive extremely smoothly, braking and steering with maximum gentle care. Now we will shift gears and look at the regulations for drivers seeking a passenger endorsement to drive commercial buses. When you transport human beings, safety regulations become even stricter, and your pre-trip inspection must include specific passenger safety checks. You must verify that all emergency exits are clearly marked, easy to open from the inside, and have working warning buzzers that sound if an exit is opened while driving. You must also ensure that all passenger seats are tightly fastened to the floor, as loose seats are an instant inspection failure. A crucial safety feature on every commercial bus is the standee line, which is a solid 2-inch line painted across the floor near the driver area. No passenger is legally allowed to stand forward of this line while the bus is in motion. This rule ensures that standing passengers do not block your view out the windshield or mirrors, and it prevents them from falling into you if you have to brake suddenly. The standee line is a favorite topic for exam creators, so remember its exact purpose and location. Bus drivers must also know exactly what items passengers are prohibited from bringing on board for safety reasons. You cannot allow passengers to bring car batteries, gasoline, or highly toxic chemicals into the passenger compartment under any circumstances. While very small amounts of certain hazardous materials are legally permitted on a bus, the general rule of thumb for the exam is that anything posing an immediate fire or chemical danger is strictly forbidden. Keeping these dangerous items off your bus protects everyone from catastrophic accidents. Loading and boarding passengers requires patience and clear communication to avoid slips, trips, and falls. You must always wait until your bus is completely stopped and the parking brake is set before opening the doors to let people on or off. During the boarding process, you must ensure that all aisles and stairwells remain completely clear of baggage, as blocked aisles prevent safe evacuation during an emergency. You should safely stow larger bags in the designated exterior compartments and ensure those compartment doors are securely latched shut before moving. Driving a bus requires extra caution around railroad crossings, which is one of the most strictly tested rules for passenger vehicles. By law, any commercial vehicle carrying passengers must come to a complete stop before crossing railroad tracks. You must stop between 15 and 50 feet away from the nearest rail, open your forward door and driver window, and actively look and listen for approaching trains. You can never legally shift gears while crossing the tracks, because if you miss a gear and stall the bus, you will be stranded right in the path of a massive train. Discharging passengers safely is just as important as boarding them, especially in busy urban areas or on dark rural roads. When dropping people off, you must pull as close to the curb as safely possible so they can step down securely. After they exit, you must carefully check your mirrors to ensure all departing passengers have completely cleared the area and walked safely away from the side of your bus. Impatient passengers sometimes try to cross directly in front of the bus where you cannot see them, so vigilant observation is absolutely mandatory before you accelerate. Passenger management also involves dealing with disruptive individuals who could distract you from safely operating the bus. If a passenger becomes aggressive or heavily disruptive, your primary duty is still the safe operation of the vehicle. You should never try to physically handle a problem while driving, but instead pull over to a safe, well-lit location before addressing the situation or calling authorities. The exam emphasizes that your attention must remain on the road, and stopping the vehicle is the only safe way to resolve severe interior distractions. Finally, you must be aware of the specific rules regarding bus braking systems, especially the brake door interlock. Many modern transit buses are equipped with a brake interlock system that automatically applies the brakes and holds the bus in place whenever the passenger doors are open. This fantastic safety feature prevents the bus from accidentally rolling while people are boarding. However, examiners will want you to know that you should never use this interlock system in place of your actual parking brake when you secure the bus at a terminal. Congratulations on completely finishing Section 3 and expanding your expertise on transporting cargo and passengers safely. I strongly encourage you to complete the attached practice test right now to see how well you grasped these specific regulations. Completing practice questions is the single most effective way to improve your memory retention and ensure you are absolutely ready for the real exam. Remember that the practice test is included with this lesson to provide you with active learning opportunities. Keep up this excellent focus, and I will see you in the next section where we dive deep into mastering air brake systems and inspections. Welcome to Section 4 of our Commercial Driver License Practice Prep course, where we unlock the mechanical secrets of air brake systems and inspections. In this lesson, you will learn how the components of an air brake system work together to stop massive vehicles and the exact steps to test them. Earning your air brakes endorsement is one of the most vital steps in your commercial driving career, because almost all heavy trucks and buses use this technology. Get ready to conquer what many consider the most technical part of the exam with confidence and ease. Let us start building your mechanical expertise right now. You might wonder why heavy commercial vehicles use air brakes instead of the hydraulic fluid brakes found in passenger cars. The primary reason is that compressed air is incredibly reliable and completely safe for stopping massive amounts of weight over long distances. If a hydraulic brake line breaks in your car, you lose all your braking fluid and your ability to stop completely. With an air brake system, even if you develop a small leak, the system can continually pump more air, and it has built-in mechanical fail-safes to stop the truck if all air is lost. To understand air brakes for your exam, you must first realize that a modern commercial vehicle actually uses 3 different braking systems combined into one. These 3 interconnected systems are the service brake system, the parking brake system, and the emergency brake system. The service brake system applies and releases the brakes when you use the brake pedal during normal driving. The parking brake applies and releases the parking brakes when you use the yellow or red parking brake control knobs on your dashboard. Finally, the emergency brake system uses parts of both systems to stop the vehicle in the event of a brake system failure. The absolute heart of the air brake system is the air compressor, which pumps outside air into the system and pressurizes it. This compressor is connected to the vehicle engine, meaning it only builds air pressure when the engine is actually running. Depending on the design of the truck, the air compressor might be driven by gears or run by belts, which you would check during your pre-trip inspection. The exam will want you to know that the compressor takes normal atmospheric air and crams it into storage tanks to create the high-pressure energy needed to stop. The air compressor cannot just pump air continuously forever, or the system would eventually explode from too much pressure. This is where the air compressor governor comes into play. The governor controls when the air compressor pumps air into the storage tanks, and when it stops. When the system pressure rises to about 125 pounds per square inch, the governor stops the compressor, which is called the cutout level. When the pressure drops to around 100 pounds per square inch, the governor tells the compressor to start pumping again, known as the cut-in level. Memorize those cut-out and cut-in numbers for your test. The compressed air is stored in heavy-duty metal air storage tanks mounted underneath the vehicle. These tanks are designed to hold enough pressurized air to allow you to use your brakes several times safely, even if the air compressor completely stops working. The amount of air these tanks hold ensures that a sudden compressor failure does not mean an immediate, dangerous loss of braking power. The exam stresses that the purpose of the storage tanks is to provide that crucial reserve of air for emergency stopping maneuvers. Because the air compressor pulls in normal outside air, it also pulls in moisture and sometimes a tiny bit of compressor oil. When the air cools down inside the storage tanks, this moisture turns into liquid water, which collects at the bottom of the tanks. If you leave water in the tanks during freezing weather, the water will turn to ice, block the air lines, and cause complete brake failure. This is exactly why you must open the drain valves at the bottom of your air tanks at the end of every single driving day. Test questions frequently test your knowledge of daily manual tank draining. To provide extra protection against ice forming in the system during harsh winter weather, some vehicles are equipped with an alcohol evaporator. This clever device automatically injects a fine mist of alcohol vapor into the air system. Alcohol has a much lower freezing point than water, so it helps keep any moisture in the lines from turning into solid ice. If your truck has an alcohol evaporator, you are responsible for checking the alcohol level daily and filling it up as needed during cold weather operations. To protect the entire system from dangerous overpressurization, a safety valve is installed in the very first air storage tank. This safety relief valve is typically set to open and release air automatically at 150 pounds per square inch. If the air compressor governor fails and allows the pressure to build too high, the safety valve will pop open and vent the excess air into the atmosphere. If you ever hear the safety valve blowing off air, you know immediately that something is mechanically wrong with your governor, and you must get it fixed right away. Inside the cab, the brake pedal is technically called the treadle valve. When you push down on the brake pedal, you are literally opening a physical valve that allows pressurized air to rush from the storage tanks out to the brakes at the wheels. The harder you press the pedal, the more air pressure you send, and the harder the brakes apply. When you release the pedal, the air inside the brake chambers is quickly exhausted out into the atmosphere, which is the loud hissing sound you often hear when a truck stops. At each wheel, you have what are called foundation brakes, and the most common type used on commercial vehicles is the S-cam drum brake. When you press the brake pedal, air fills a mechanical brake chamber located near the wheel. This air pressure pushes a metal pushrod out of the chamber. The pushrod is connected to a slack adjuster, and as the pushrod moves, it turns a long rod called the brake camshaft. Understanding this chain reaction from air chamber to pushrod to slack adjuster to camshaft is vital for visualizing how air brakes physically function. At the end of the brake camshaft inside the wheel hub is a metal piece shaped exactly like the letter S, appropriately named the S-cam. As the camshaft turns, the S-cam rotates and forces the brake shoes physically apart. The brake shoes have special friction linings on them, and as they are pushed outward, they press tightly against the inside of the spinning metal brake drum. The heavy friction between the brake linings and the brake drum is what finally slows the wheels down and stops your vehicle. To monitor all this air pressure, your dashboard features supply pressure gauges. All commercial vehicles equipped with air brakes must have a gauge connected to the air tank so the driver can actively monitor how much pressure is available. If your vehicle has a dual air brake system, which almost all modern trucks do, you will either have two separate gauges or one gauge with two differently colored needles. It is your professional responsibility to check this gauge frequently while driving to ensure your air supply remains stable. If your air pressure drops to a dangerous level, the system features a mandatory low air pressure warning signal. This warning must activate before the air pressure falls below 60 pounds per square inch. The warning is almost always a bright red light on the dash accompanied by a loud, annoying buzzer. If that buzzer comes on while you are driving, it means you have a massive air leak, and you must brake smoothly and pull off the road immediately before your brakes lock up automatically. The 60 psi warning threshold is one of the most frequently asked questions on the entire exam. Now we must discuss spring brakes, which function as your parking and emergency brakes. Because air pressure can leak away when a truck is parked and turned off overnight, you cannot rely on air pressure to hold a parked vehicle in place. Instead, massive mechanical springs inside the brake chambers are used to hold the brakes against the drums. While driving, powerful air pressure is used to hold these springs back, completely off the brakes. If you lose all your air pressure, there is nothing left to hold the springs back, and they will slam shut, applying the brakes automatically. These spring brakes are controlled by the brightly colored knobs on your dashboard. The yellow diamond-shaped knob controls the tractor parking brakes, and popping it out applies the spring brakes. If your air pressure drops dangerously low, usually between 20 and 45 pounds per square inch, the system will force this yellow knob to pop out on its own, locking the spring brakes. This automatic pop-out feature guarantees that the vehicle will come to a halt even if the driver completely ignores the low air warning buzzer. Passing the air brake inspection test is critical, and it revolves around a strict sequence of steps you must memorize. The first step is the applied leakage test. With a fully charged air system and the engine turned off, you must release your parking brakes and hold the foot brake pedal down firmly. You must watch the air gauge for 1 full minute to ensure the air pressure does not drop more than 3 pounds per square inch for a single vehicle, or 4 pounds for a combination vehicle. This test proves your airlines are completely sealed and secure. The next critical step in the in-cab inspection is proving that your low air pressure warning alarm works correctly. With the engine off and the electrical key turned on, you will pump or fan the foot brake pedal repeatedly to bleed air out of the tanks. You must watch the gauge closely to verify that the red warning light and buzzer turn on before the pressure drops below 60 psi. Continuing to pump the brakes further will eventually cause the yellow parking brake knob to pop out, which brilliantly proves your automatic spring brakes are functioning as designed. You must also test how fast your air compressor can build pressure back up. For a dual air system, the pressure must build from 85 to 100 pounds per square inch within 40-50 seconds while the engine is running at normal operating revolutions per minute. This build-up rate test proves that your compressor is strong enough to keep up with the demands of heavy braking during normal traffic conditions. If your system takes longer than 45 seconds to build pressure, the vehicle is legally unsafe to drive and will fail a roadside inspection. Congratulations on completing Section 4 and mastering the complex mechanics of air brake systems. I highly encourage you to take the attached practice test right now to secure your understanding of all these technical pressure numbers and testing steps. Working through practice questions is incredibly powerful for cementing this mechanical knowledge and sharpening your exam readiness. Your specific air brake practice questions are included with this lesson to reward your hard work. Keep embracing this active learning style, and I will be waiting for you in the next section where we will conquer the dynamics of combination vehicles and coupling.